annual town budget meeting. The legal voters of the town of Bethel, Connecticut, and those persons entitled to vote therein are hereby notified to assemble at the annual town budget meeting to be held at the Bethel High School Auditorium, 300 Whittlesey Drive in Bethel, Connecticut, on Monday, April 2nd, 2018, at 7 p.m. for the following purposes to wit. Number 1, to consider and take action upon a resolution to appropriate the sum of $29,861,242, which sum includes debt service of $3,939,238, and the school's building maintenance account of $500,008, as recommended by the Board of Finance as the annual town operating budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2018. Number 2, to consider and take action upon a resolution to appropriate the sum of $45,116,282 as recommended by the Board of Finance as the annual Board of Education budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2018. Number 3, to consider and take action on a resolution to appropriate the sum of $2,315,000 as recommended by the Board of Finance for capital item expenditures and further authorizing the issuance of short-term notes and/or bonds of the town of Bethel in an amount not exceeding $2,315,000 to finance the appropriation of said sum for all costs incurred for the following capital item expenditures. Highway, Class 8 42,000 GVW truck, $196,000. Highway, Elgin Street Sweeper, $230,000. Education, High School HVAC, $250,000. Education, Turf Field, High School, $979,000. Bethel Fire, replace BFD Engine 6, $660,000. Total capital, $2,315,000. Number 4, to authorize the first selectman and the treasurer of the town of Bethel to borrow on short-term notes or loans, quote, tax anticipation notes, end quote, an amount not to exceed the aggregate of $6 million for the purpose of paying current expenditures of the town of Bethel for this fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2018, which tax anticipation notes are to be repaid from anticipated tax revenues. Number 5, to consider and take action upon a resolution that the tax on motor vehicles and personal property be collected in one or more than one installment. Number 6, to establish the date on which the machine vote on the annual town budget shall take place in accordance with the provisions of the Bethel Town Charter. Number 7, to do any and all things which may be legally required or appropriate to accomplish the above named purposes. Dated at Bethel, Connecticut, this 23rd day of March, 2018. Board of Selectmen, Matthew S. Knickerbocker, First Selectman, Richard C. Straighten, Selectman, Paul R. Zakowski, Selectman.
Thank you, Lisa. I'll entertain a motion to accept the call.
Question. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Philip Gallagher on Sunset Hill Road. I have a question on number 3. The capital items, $2,315,000. Is that going to be voted on as a separate question on the budget referendum?
Yes.
It will be. So there'll be a question on the Board of Ed budget, the town budget, and a separate question on the capital.
Each of these motions will be entertained separately, one at a time.
No, but when we vote in the referendum in whenever it's be 2 weeks or a week and a half, that will be a separate question on the ballot.
That's correct.
That's correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Move to accept the agenda.
Jim Palmer made the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Kitty Grant made a second. All those, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. A couple housekeeping notes before we ask the first question to be read. For those of you who may be new to a public hearing, we take a motion, we get a second, and if you'd like to speak to that motion, please step up to the microphone and give your name and address. If you'd like to speak a second time, I do respectfully ask that you allow people to speak a first time, and at the end, if your question has not been asked, then by all means. For those of you who know that there are several motions that we will be reading. They are read in their entirety. Some are a little long, so please be patient. And for those of you who are here to speak specifically just to the turf field, as an aside, I would like to remind you it's in motion number 3, so there's no real reason to mention it in either the first or the second motion because it's germane to motion number 3. I will try to keep everyone focused on the motion at hand, and with that, I would ask the town attorney to please read the first motion.
Pursuant to the charter of the town of Bethel, shall the town of Bethel appropriate the sum of $29,861,242 as recommended by the Board of Finance as the town operating budget, a portion of the annual town budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2018, to be placed on the ballot for a townwide referendum machine vote.
I will entertain a motion to accept to make the motion on the floor. Is that Bill Hillman, I think, made the first? Second was Bob. Okay. Discussion on the motion.
Bill Hillman, 86 Walnut Hill Road. Mike is so falsified. This is a year where we're having an incredible tax increase to the taxpayer. $2.8 million, I think, is the biggest tax increase to the taxpayers in Bethel's history. 4.53%. On the town budget side, we're looking at a 4.43% increase year to year, excluding the 460 account. That's incredible. It's huge. The Board of Selectmen recommended a budget that was at inflation levels. Currently, the inflation level, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is at about 2.2%. And the forecast, according to Statistica.com, is about 2.38 for the year 2018. There was a particular item number 420 on the non-recurring capital, where the Board of Selectmen wisely issued an increase for that account that was a reasonable amount that would have brought the entire budget for the town to the inflation levels. We'll be talking about the education budget later, but just to note, it came in at 1.8% year-to-year increase, is below the level of inflation. So it seems to me that the Board of Selectmen, Matt Knickerbocker especially, and Richie and Paul, your recommendation made a lot of sense. But the Board of Finance decided they wanted to add money in the kitty for projects as yet unknown. So with that, if we were to take that item 420 down by $400,000, we would get back to within a few thousand of the Board of Selectmen's original recommendation, leaving an amount in the non-recurring capital of $605,008. That's still a whopping 52% increase over the balance that's there now. And it would bring the entire budget amount down to a level that could support an estimated mill rate instead of 33.04 of 32.84, actually down a little bit year to year. That's what that $400,000 reduction would do. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to reduce line 420 by $400,000.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Can I have the dollar amount again, please?
$400,000 reduction.
Line 420?
Line 420, that would bring it down from $1,001,029 to an amount of $601,029.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Robert Palmer, 7 Sunset Hill Road. There are a lot of numbers being thrown up there, and unfortunately, you lose track of them when you're sitting here and listening, especially when the speaker starts off with numbers which are just not right. The number of the tax increase that is on the table is being proposed, total tax increase is about $2 million, which represents a 2.76%, not a 5%.
Jim,
not
speak
a,
into the mic.
not a 4.75%, but 2.76%. So, at the gate, when the when the motion has erroneous numbers thrown out there, trying to,
Excuse me.
Point of order. I'm being called a liar. I do not appreciate that.
Excuse me. There is.
we're discussing alternative facts here, and the alternative fact is that the numbers being presented are not accurate and not what's being
Point of
presented.
order.
Mr. Hillman, somebody else is speaking.
Point of order. I would like the controller
Thank you
to
very
validate my
much.
numbers.
Thank you, Jim.
Line 500.
Excuse me.
Point
Does
of order,
anybody,
my numbers were accurate. I've been called a liar, and I would
Mr.
like a
Hillman.
correction, and I would like the controller to
Mr.
validate my
Hillman,
numbers.
you've had your opportunity to speak. It's somebody else's turn.
Billy Michael, 27.5 Fleetwood Avenue,
And you're
support.
still speaking to the motion, Bill?
I'm speaking to the motion. Could I have the real number of the dollar amount increase that Bill Hillman spoke, and the percentage increase, and the aggregate increase in net taxes that we're talking about? The 65.
We're talking line 420.
The 62 million to the 65 million, that big chunk of money.
The increase in mill rate is 0.48%.
Or the increase is 4.
0.48. Included in the numbers.
Can everyone hear?
The increase right now that we're looking at in the mill rate is 0.48%. The increase in the revenue from 17.8 in the current year we're in to the estimated amount of 18.19, which is 65,067,
Yes.
includes increases that represent a new construction in the town of somewhere around $800,000. So Mr. Hillman was talking about a $2.8 million increase in collection of revenue. It's probably closer to $2 million when you look at just the revenue collected on the old homes and the existing homes, not the new construction.
So the new construction brings in that other $800,000 that gets you to
That's what it's being calculated as.
$2,800,000.
Mhm.
That's a lot, opinion, I think that's a lot of new money to be taken out of the Bethel taxpayers when you're taking 62 million right now?
Right now, $62,245,000.
Okay, and you're going up by
65
you're going to get almost $3 more million. And we've lost $1 million in state aid,
Correct.
is this right? Okay, so we're going to be picking that up through local, the spending that $1 million covered now has to be paid for by our homeowners' businesses.
Correct.
Okay. I've got another question.
Is this still to the
Yeah,
motion?
This is the motion,
I just want to
absolutely.
make sure.
As you look at our grant, because we just went through a revale, and our revale, the grant list is somewhere around $2 billion, $6 million. They were the numbers I received. Is that good, Ms.
It's in that area.
Yeah. And Bethel has seen better days relative to grant list. In 2007, we had a larger grand list than we do today. Is that correct?
I wasn't around in 2007, so.
You weren't here?
No.
It seems like you've been here forever.
Feels that way.
Well, our grand list was roughly $2,300,000,000. Now, you were around in the last revale when it dropped $475 million to $1.8 billion. So we've had quite a decline in personal wealth, people what they own because of the decline in the real estate. And now we've inched up a little bit, but we're not even where we were 10 years ago. There's people who have less wealth than they did 10 years ago in their real estate holdings. So I think this is hardly the time to suck another $2.8 million out of the taxpayers, regardless of whether $800,000 is coming out of grand list growth. Because the grand list is not what it was 10 years ago, and this is part of the malaise in Connecticut. So I'm going to speak in favor of Bill's motion to reduce that line item by set amount. And as I recall, it was basically the same amount that the Board of Selectmen supported. And I celebrate the Board of Selectmen and I don't understand how our Board of Finance got so liberal in its spending. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the motion of the reduction in line 420 by $400,000? Step up to the mic if you do. Name and address, please.
Frank Minio, 24 Briar Ridge Drive. There's been this goes to the motion. There's a new federal tax out there that caps what state and local taxes can be deducted. It's called SALT. And that, Connecticut is one of those states that's got hit with a $10,000 cap. There are significant people in town who are going to have to pay significantly more income taxes in 2018 and 2019. What considerations were taken back to the fact that we are increasing our expenses, increasing our mill rate, when we're seeing less money coming from state education, less money that we're going to be able to deduct as part of our income taxes. I absolutely agree with Mr. Hillman and with others that if the Board of Selectmen came in with an inflation rate increase, that's exactly where we should be at, no higher. I think we're going to be forcing people really to struggle if we keep on increasing. Thank you.
Any further comments on the motion?
I would just like to address Bill Gallagher, Sunset Hill Road. Charles, me. Anyway, I guess I can talk into it. The question I have, the comment, the motion is directed towards the transfer capital account, right? 370, is that correct?
420 account.
Yeah, 423.7. Is that what the motion is directed to?
The motion stated was a $400,000 reduction in the line 420.
Well, I know, but there's there's contingency in 420, there's wage adjustments, there's a town hall expense, there's a transfer capital.
It was a general motion to reduce line 420.
I see. I would like to amend the motion so that it addresses the 423.70 specifically. I think that's what he took. I don't want to read his mind, but I think that's what he was thinking of.
Do I hear a second on the amendment?
Second.
Now,
Okay, so wait a minute.
okay.
Bill, and who made the second?
I did.
Billy? Bill, what?
Bill Hill.
Oh, Bill.
So Mr. Hillman, who made the original motion, seconded my amendment, which I think I'm in line with what he was trying to say. The transfer capital account is an account, can I?
Hang on, didn't you vote on the amendment? I need to ask a procedural question.
Sure.
We have the motion.
It might be clearer if Mr. Hillman had intended that $400,000 to come out of the capital number.
Ask him to accept
Ask him to just amend the motion, and then you don't have to have two amendments.
I would accept the motion to amend my initial motion to direct it to
The 370 account within the 4, okay, so the
Yes.
motion we're going to stipulate, thank you gentlemen for the clarification, that the $400,000 reduction, this is the motion, in line 420 is the 370 part of the 420 line item that you want to reduce by $400,000.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the motion we're discussing. Thank you, Phil.
Okay. I'd like to ask you to chair Mr. Kozlowski, what's the current balance in the transfer capital account? Is there a balance in that 370 account?
For this particular year, I think we have about $140,000 left, and then there's some monies left over from last year, somewhere around $60,000 to $65,000.
So
So we carry that amount, those amounts over from year to year.
so it is 140 plus 65, so it's over 200,000. Is that right? And this would add, the original figure that the Board of Finance came up with would add considerably to that. I'll give you a little history on the transfer capital account. I was on the Board of Finance or Selectmen, I forget which one, I've been back and forth for many years. Fortunately for me, I'm not on either of them now because put a lot of time in. But anyway, the history behind the transfer capital account back in the late 80s, early 90s was that this would take certain items off budget. And so, because it would be a certain amount of money that would be built up in the account, and you could take small capital items and it would not raise the taxes so much. So the idea was to build up the account, but never to the extent that was done this year. Now, I would ask a question to the chair, and maybe the chairman of the Board of Finance can tell me, is there any specific items they had in mind by raising it to this amount?
The answer to that specific question is yes. There are specific items that were meant to be covered by this addition to the 370 sub-account within the total.
Would you care to identify that to the chair?
Absolutely. The highway garage roof replacement, $220,000. A Codfish Road culvert fixing of $150,000. A highway truck for $86,500. Highway facility shed for $65,000, and a number of other smaller dollar items. As you pointed out, Mr. Gallo, historically, these items have been accounted for off budget. All that means is we've used the credit card to buy these things in the past, and then have had to deal with the purchase price plus interest rate on top of it. What this proposal suggests is paying cash for these items, to not borrow, but rather to pay operating cash to avoid interest in what will be a rising interest rate environment.
Well, to the chair, what you're actually doing is raising it quite a bit in a single year. I think you would realize that. And quite a bit above what the Board of Selectmen wanted. Now, it's nice to be able to do all those things you said, but given the other items in the budget and the other possible expenses, I think that the Board of Selectmen's original recommendation would be the proper one. Considering it's still going to put how much more, 225,000 more in, plus the 225 roughly in there already. That should be enough. It'd be nice to do all those, but considering the total amount of budget and other items that people want, I think that the motion is in order to bring the account back to what the Board of Selectmen recommended, and I would speak in favor of that. Thank you.